on these 2 webinars. Okay, and we might also try to put out a few videos just explaining how certain types of materials are gathered, what format we want it in, how you do certain things in eSnaps. But those will probably be very few, so rely as much as you can on the printed documentation. Okay, we also always, as in the past, we provide some information on the programs that are eligible for funding under this grant. Most of you are renewal grantees, so you're very aware of what is available under this grant. Permanent housing, transitional housing, supportive services only. This is not an eligible project for new applications. In fact, this year the only new type of application that could be submitted would either be permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing through reallocation, or if it's through the permanent housing bonus, it would be simply permanent housing for the chronically homeless. Sorry, let me pull that back up. Okay, HMIS is eligible for funding under this grant. We already have that covered. This year, match is not available. Homelessness prevention is not an eligible project in this 2014 grant. The match, for those of you who may be applying for renewal grants the first time this year, this is a little different for you. Everything that is eligible for match, it's a 25% match. There's no difference between operations and supportive services the way HUD used to handle their match. One other difference is you can use in-kind contributions as part of this. It doesn't have to be all cash match. If you can, though, I think it's probably easier to keep it cash match if it's possible. So here's our timeline. We sent out, I think, a draft of this last Tuesday or Wednesday whenever we found out about that HUD released this grant. We updated a few things and sent this back out late last week. But this is the official timeline. I already see something that we need to change that we didn't catch last Friday, so we'll make sure to change that. But October 6th is the deadline. We'll make sure to change that and update that on the website. But October 6th is the deadline. When we get that, we will do a quick review. It'll have to be a very quick review, not as detailed as last year. But again, we're looking for those things those little mistakes that could ultimately cause you to lose funding or drastically change your project. So we'll be looking at those things, and then we'll ask you for those corrections and then ask you to turn everything back in so we can then work with our evaluation, project evaluation work group, CoC Grant Review Subcommittee, to score and prioritize those. So there is our timeline. And again, we have to turn this all in by October 30th, so it's very quick. And we do have to give, I believe, HUD, yes, they ask us to make sure to review everything and give you feedback and let you know whether or not your project is eligible for submission, I think 10 days before the application deadline. So by October 20th, we have to let you know all that, and that's why, that's another reason that this timeline is so sped up. Okay, I'm going to take a little time for questions. Actually, let me first of all address the sound again. Michelle Wormley says she's still not hearing me very well. Is anyone else having this problem? And are you not hearing me very well? I wonder if Maybe there's something with our internet. Okay, other people are saying no problem, Michelle. I will try to speak up a little bit louder. And then the other question that came in is from April Mitchell, and you asked why Hood County is not listed on the BoS list. Are you eligible for funding of new projects? You should be on that list. I believe I'll look for that and make sure that Hood County is on it. Okay. Okay, that looks like that's all the questions other than the question about the sound, and I think that's gotten a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm sorry, there's one more question that's come in, and I think that this might be helpful to everyone. Ben Hyde in Comal County asked where you get the eSNAPS login information, and I will go ahead and we'll go over that a little bit later in this training. He also asked, and this is where I noticed the mistake earlier, what's the difference between the two dates for deadlines? That was a mistake. The earlier deadline that said the 14th. Your initial deadline is the 6th. So go with this deadline. I will update that date that is listed earlier on in this RFP after this meeting. We're trying to put this together as quickly as possible, and I'm sorry, it looks like we did make that mistake. So we'll correct that and put that on online. So this is your application format. So whenever you start to put together your application, I think it's a good idea to look at this list, print it out, and just as you complete things, check that off your list. And then put your file, your electronic file, together with all of this information. And if you want to, you could even number it the same way. I've seen applicants do that, and that sometimes helps them with organization. So if you've worked with us in the past, I guess earlier than the last competition, which actually wrapped up earlier this year, you knew that you had to mail things into us, physically mail things into us. Now we're doing it all via email, so you'll put together your packets electronically and you'll submit that to this email address. Okay, and then the rest of the documentation, the rest of the RFP is just a list of the cities that are listed in the balance of state and the counties. And if Hood County is not in here, then we definitely need to correct that. So it looks like, yeah, there's Hood County. So you guys are listed. But there should be 213 counties listed in here, and if yours is not, definitely let us know. We do have an example that we referenced earlier in the RFP of a leverage / match letter. We could give you other examples if you want of this. And then there is an example of a working agreement between two agencies that you could use if you were going to take on a subrecipient as part of your project application. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this list of required documents to use later. I can see there's been some other questions asked, and I'm going to try to make this, okay, now I got it to where it's actually, the questions are listed as they come in. Okay, actually I'm going to move on because I think some of these questions, yeah, I'll answer later as I go. So, okay, this is the RFP, and then next on our agenda is a quick review of the Renewal CoC project evaluation. Okay, and this I'm going to quickly go through too, in fact quicker than that. these next two documents I'll go through pretty quickly. We've went over this a lot over the past few months. If you're a renewal grantee, I hope that you have looked at this and know exactly what we're doing with this. But this is the CoC project evaluation that we will use for all of our renewal grants. I think really the most important thing to know with this or to understand about this is how projects are prioritized. And we've gone over this a lot, like I said, the past few months. When I spoke earlier of scoring projects within their different grant categories, I was referring to this priority ranking, and this is what HUD uses. So just real quickly, what we'll do is we'll take all of our renewal applications and we will put together the permanent housing projects in the first category, and we'll score all of them, and then they'll be ranked accordingly. So you could have, say, I think we have more than this, but say 6 permanent supportive housing projects. The one that scores the highest on our renewal evaluation will be ranked number 1 out of those 6. The one that scores the lowest will be number 6. And then you'll go down to the next category, which will start at slot 7. So if we have any new reallocated permanent supportive housing, the top scoring application from that category will be 7, and then that will just go down the list. So we've discussed this a lot in the past, but this is basically the way HUD is ranking them anyway. So we've adopted that prioritization, and then we're scoring the projects within each of those priority categories. Okay, the grant review subcommittee will use the information that is gathered to score these projects, and then they'll ultimately make a recommendation for overall project prioritization to the CoC board. So the CoC board will vote on that before we submit that to HUD. Okay, and I'm going to go through this project information in a little bit. This is a list of all of the renewal evaluation, the renewal projects. We have sent this list out several times, so I'm confident that this list is correct. At least this is what HUD thinks is correct. And hopefully if you're representing one of these agencies, you have someone on the call, or if your application's up for renewal, you have someone on this call. If not, they definitely need to review this recording and or the paper documentation. Here's our scoring tool. If you're a renewal application, I would just go through and try to score your project as best you can to see where you might end up. This, I think, is a little easier to read than what we used last year. So I would just go through and identify where you think you might land. What you're going to look at for most of this is your annual performance report data. So for example, if you're a permanent supportive housing project, one of the first things we'll look at is whether or not clients stayed in your project for 6 months or longer. And if 83% or more of your clients did stay in your project for 6 months or longer, you would receive 10 points. If you fell somewhere within 5 percentage points under that, then you would receive 7.5 out of 10. Anything below that is 0. And so that's how the scoring goes throughout this evaluation form. APR data is used in large part, but then later on you'll see we do look at data from other sources. For example, we look to find out whether or not you submitted your housing inventory and point-in-time data on time. We look at whether or not you're spending your funding. So we're going to look at your locks information. I'll show you how to put that together and send that to us in a few minutes. And then we'll look at your HMIS data quality. These are all things that we've gone over in the past, so hopefully you've seen this. Well, I'm sorry, there's actually two more things we'll look at. The amount of leverage that you bring to the table. We're asking you to bring at least 150% of leverage to your project and to our CoC application. And then we need to look at whether or not you had any HUD monitoring findings. So obviously if you had some findings that you did not resolve, then you would lose potential points for that. Okay, so new project is the next thing on our list. Now this is for bonus funding for new permanent housing. Each CoC could have one applicant submitted as part of their application this year, and these are going to be projects that are very strict. They definitely have to be permanent supportive housing, or you do have the option of creating a new project through reallocation. I'm not going to talk about that much because I don't think that we have any projects out there that are choosing to reallocate. So for the most part, if we're going to get a new project this year, it looks like it's going to have to be through the permanent supportive housing bonus. I really hope that someone will apply. And again, like I said earlier, if someone is interested, please call us afterwards so we can discuss this with you and see what we can do to help you put together that application and get that thing funded. You know what? I'm not going to go through this in great detail because this doesn't apply to most of you. I will just say that with this application, with the bonus permanent supportive housing money, each CoC is first of all ranked by their level of need. So each project is scored on a 100-point scale, and the level of need that's 60 points worth. So the CoCs that are have a high level of need would get 60 points, and then 45, 30, and I think on down. We fall into the 30 category. So there are other CoCs that are determined to be in greater need than us. So right away, you know, we're going to score lower than a CoC that has a greater need. So I'm just saying that to say that if someone is planning on submitting an application, we're going to really press you to put together the best application possible and work it out to where you can get as many of the remaining 40 points as possible so you have a chance of funding. So we would work very closely with you on that application to try to get those extra points, because you're going to start out by being 30 points down compared to other CoCs with the greater level of need as determined by HUD. Oh yeah, and Mary brings up a good point that, yeah, HUD has, they're the ones who determine the score, and I can send out some more documentation about it, but it's largely based on the number of chronically homeless persons that we list in our point in time data, and the number of beds for people experiencing chronic homelessness. So we're, I guess, doing a little bit better than other CoCs, although I think our level of need is still pretty high. But if you are interested in that, please call us after this. Sorry for going through these pretty quickly. I want to make sure to get to some of the other items that I think are very important. But I'm going to take a quick break and look to see if there are any new questions. Okay, Jenny has a question here about the APR, but I think I'll answer that in a little bit, Jenny. Okay, and it looks like I answered the other question from Carol. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to the number 2 on the agenda, the overview of items required for the submission. So this is listed right here on the RFP. These are the items that you're going to need. This is the list that I was saying it would be a good idea for you to print out and just keep by your application packet and check off things as you prepare them. But the first thing on the list is the applicant profile. You're going to get this from eSnaps, and that's what we're going to go over last today. The second item that you're going to need, you also get through eSnaps, and it's your project application. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. That'll probably be the entire time that we talk. The third thing is your most recent APR. Now this only applies to renewal projects, of course. So if you have an APR, you're going to submit that to THN, your most recent one. Now Jenny Stafford from Midcoast Family Services in Victoria earlier asked, well, what if we've already submitted our most recent APR? And if you have already done that, that's great. Still submit that as part of your electronic package, but the good thing for us is that we'll already have that data in our scoring tool, so it'll be a little easier on us to score and prioritize your grant. But go ahead and just submit the full package, everything that's asked for, even if you have submitted it. If you did submit it in the 2013 competition, go ahead and submit it again, just so we make sure that we have the most up-to-date APR. You may think that you sent us the most recent APR, but you may have sent us one that was older than this more recent one and just don't remember. But for I don't know if it's most of you, but for many of you, you will send the same APR that you sent in 2013. But we want to just make sure that it is the same before we put together that scoring tool. You're going to send any HUD audit or monitoring findings. Okay, and if you do not have any audit or monitoring findings from HUD, just send a letter in stating that. You don't need HUD to sign it. Just let us know. We will check with HUD to see if there were any audit or monitoring findings from all the CoCs. So we'll know whether or not you did have any. But if you didn't, if you weren't even visited by HUD, just submit a letter stating that you haven't been visited, so you have no findings. But if you do have findings, please send those in so we can look at that. Well, actually, if you've had a monitoring report, no matter what it says, please send a copy of that in so we can see what that says. That will identify whether or not there were findings, and there should be documentation that goes along with it that will identify whether or not you've met or resolved those findings. Okay. Next is your leverage documentation, and actually I didn't find out from you, Carol, but is it okay if I show some of your documentation as a sample? And I'm speaking to Carol Gresham. We had a lot of applicants that put together really good application packages. Thanks, Carol. And Carol is one of those, so I'm going to show you, she put together her application in a file folder here. Now, she didn't number everything, but it's easy for me to see where everything is. So as I go through, I can see that the applicant profile is very clearly identified. The project The project application actually, it's pretty easy to figure out which one that is. It's listed here too. Then they have the APR, and so if you haven't seen the APR printed, this is what it's going to look like. We may have a few new projects that they've only completed one APR, and they haven't printed it out. So if you save it as a PDF from eSnaps, it's going to look like this. This is what we want you to send us for your APR. Okay. And then we asked for the most recent HUD audit or monitoring letters, and she sent that in as well. So this is what it's going to look like. So you can see that this is officially from HUD, and the subject is the monitoring review. So if you have something like that, that's what we want you to send in. If you don't have anything like that, that's when you will send in the letter stating that you haven't been visited and haven't been monitored by HUD. Okay. After that, you're going to send in your locks data. Now, for those of you who, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped project match and leverage. All of the renewal projects, at least those that have been in renewal for more than a couple of years, are pretty used to putting these together. Those of you who might be up for renewal the first time, you may or may not remember the match and leverage letters that you put together when you initially applied for this. If you can dig that information out, please do and look at that. If you need to, I could probably find that for you if you were with our CoC at the time of your first application submission. So let me know if you need me to try to look for that. But it should look something like this, and I'm going to show Carol's again. Sorry for picking on you so much, Carol, but you did put together good documentation. So you're going to want something like this. So you can see that she has a letter. It's on her letterhead. She's identifying the amount of funding that she's going to have for match or leverage, and I think in this case it's match. And she identifies that the time frame in which the match will be used. So that's very important. You need to identify what money will be available for the time frame that you're applying for, and then make sure to list that amount of money and the time frame. So you can see she lists everything out. Some projects, they'll itemize everything on a, well, this is kind of what she does here. She's itemizing everything. It looks probably on a spreadsheet, so it's very clear where everything is coming from. And then she has letters and signatures with everything. So this is what we're looking for from you as a project applicant. So I'm going to take a break and take a drink and ask if you have any questions about that. Okay, it looks like no. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. After that, you need to send us your locks data. That may sound, well, it probably sounds familiar to most of you, but if it doesn't, locks stands for Line of Credit Control System. So for years and years, this has been done over the phone. So you've heard that woman's voice where it's very computerized, and she says, "Welcome to the locks Line of Credit Control System." And that's where you identify the amount of money you're drawing from HUD from those grants each month or each quarter, or however often you draw that money. What we want with this is a listing of those draws for the past 3 years, the last full 2 years, and then the most recent year. It may not be an entire 12-month span. So you're going to send that to us in the format that you collect that information in. Okay, let me show you that. So many of you probably are like us. You have a hard copy You keep everything in your hard copy documentation as well as electronically. So when we pull from our HUD grant for expenses related to HMIS, we call into LOCKSS, just like you all do. We identify the amount of funding we need for each line item before that call. We write that out on this sheet of paper that I'll show you here. I think many of you have it. It looks like this. It's the request voucher for grant payment letter. And you see there's line items, and I'm keeping this purposely kind of blurry because I don't want to list all the private information there, but you see all the different line items and the codes, and then you see the amount of funding that we asked for under each line item in that month's LOCKSS call. Now that matches information that we put into our accounting software and also what we put into a spreadsheet where we track those monthly drawdowns. You probably have something similar to this. So this is the data that we're asking for. Last year, some applicants just simply sent these copies of these forms in, and that's not really what I would prefer. I would prefer you to put this together in a spreadsheet. If you already have a spreadsheet that we can clearly see, where we can clearly see the different line items, you can send that in. Otherwise, I would ask that you send in something like this. This form will be made available to you. I don't know if it's already on the website. If it's not, I'll put it up there, but I'll email it to you after this call anyway. So for each month that you're drawing down funds, you're going to list the amount that you're drawing down, and it should total over here for you. There's a formula. Well, I will put the formula back in. So you can just send in one spreadsheet and use each one of these tabs for your different project years. A lot of you have already done this during our 2013 competition, so you just have to update that. And I purposely leave the start date and end date off of this because you all have different start and end dates. So your month one may be December, while another project's month one may be March. So all you have to do here is just put in your start and end date. You don't have to write in the months up here. If you want to, you can. A lot of applicants did. But the main thing is just identify the correct start and end dates and then the amount of money that you drew for each line item for that project year. All we're looking for with this is your expenditure rates. So we're just trying to identify if there are projects out there that aren't spending their money and they're not doing it consistently. We need to work with them on why they're not. Is it that they actually don't need that much money for this project, or what's the situation there? So we'll ask you to send that in to us as well. And then, of course, if there are new applications for the bonus permanent supportive housing, they'll need to send in a completed copy of that application for us. And just so you know, if you're going through that application and looking at it, the things that we ask for in that application, they mirror what we're asking for or what HUD asked for in eSNAPs. So that should help you to fill out your eSNAPs application if you choose to do that. Okay, I'm going to take a little break and answer some questions here. Okay, actually there's just one question that looks like that came up. Carol asked if we put our grantee number, if you put your grantee number in the LOCKSS form. Yeah, we do ask for that. And the reason we ask for that, just so you know, is so we know we're very clear on which grant this is. Some of you, like you, Carol, have more than one grant. And the project names are very similar in some cases. So if you'll put the grantee number, that will help us, because then we can look at your grant inventory worksheet and we can see for sure how much money you have in that grant. So that just helps us really narrow down exactly what grant we're looking at. So if you would, please do put that grantee number in there. Okay, another question came up while I was answering that one. April Mitchell asked what amount of funding do we recommend for each project. So April and everyone, if you're a renewal grantee, you know how much money you're able to apply for. We've identified that when we were confirming the information on the grant inventory worksheet. So if you're a renewal application, then you do know that amount. If you don't, look at that grant inventory worksheet. That will tell you. If you're applying for the bonus money for new permanent supportive housing, I think I'm safe to say that there's more than enough money for any one project in the balance of state. I think there's over $4 million. I think a little over 4.5 million. Actually, it might be more than that. Mary may remember, but it's a lot of money. So if you're applying for that money, I would just say apply for the money that you would think you would need to operate that project. Okay, I'm going to get back to the agenda here. Bear with me. Okay. So those are the items that you're going to have to send in for submission. And you know what? Actually, today I'll try to put together some samples of all of these. I won't send, Carol, I won't send yours out. I'll put together some samples that from a made-up organization that you all can use. I think I actually might have one from last year that I can quickly update. Okay, one more question before I move on. Michelle Wormley from Woman Inc. in Galveston asked, is there any chance grantees receiving operations and supportive services will receive cost of living increases like was designated for the leasing rental assistance? The quick answer is no. I mean, I really doubt it. That increase for leasing and rental assistance is just based on the increase in fair market rent. Unfortunately, HUD's not been increasing the amount of funding in leasing. HUD's been not increasing the amount of funding in supportive services and operations like they are with leasing and rental assistance. Okay, so I want to direct you to some of the resources here. Okay, I definitely, if you haven't checked out HUD's resources, please do check those out. You can find that all, if you haven't looked at that, you can find that, now it's actually at hudexchange.info. Now you can go to hudexchange.info and you go to manage a program and then go to homeless assistance and then go down to your CoC program competition, eSNAP's resources, and you'll find a lot of really good resources here. Or if you want, you can just go to Texas Homeless Network's website, put your cursor over the balance of state continuum of care. You actually can click on that if you want, and that brings you to this page here. Or you can just keep your cursor there and then move down to CoC resources. This is where you're going to get everything you need for the grant. Click on Texas Balance of State Continuum of Care grant materials, and then you'll see I've uploaded a lot of things to this site. I did late last week, and we'll keep updating it. And as we update it, I'll try to make sure everyone gets an email about that things have been updated. But I would go and look at it often to see what might be new, what might be helpful. If you need to, like I said, use HUD's information, you can actually access that here. This is some resources to help with the eSnaps features and functions. You can go down and look at the renewal project applicant instructional guide, new project applicant instructional guide, everything that HUD provides on, well, I shouldn't say everything. Many of the things that HUD provides on HUD Exchange you can find here. But again, also look at HUD Exchange because there is a lot of good information, and you're going to find all of your useful resources, or I would say the majority of them, within the CoC program competition / project applicants page. Okay. And we had another question come in from Ben Hyde. He's asking if I could send all the forms that I sent last week, resend them, and I will. I'll send everything again after this call. It's my hope that after this call you can start working on at least the first part of your application and putting together some of the documents that you need for your application package leading up to the call tomorrow, so then you can get some information tomorrow and just carry on with your application work. But definitely take a look at both of these resources. Use them as much as you can. They are really good resources. They will help you out with your application. If you ask me a question, for example, about performance measures, this is going to be ultimately what I rely on. Sure, I'll rely on some of what I've learned from the past, but I'm going to go to this instructional guide to verify that what I'm telling you is correct. So you can always go there yourself and get that information. Okay, any questions right now? Okay, I wanted to leave some time for the last two items using eSnaps and applicant profile, because I think this is probably, for a lot of you, if you're new, I mean, all of this is important, but if you're new, this might be something that would be important for you to start right now, and that's getting into eSnaps and start using that. And right on cue, Suzette, you ask, when do we start registering projects in eSnaps? And this is going to be the first step of that. So first of all, I'm going to just give a quick tutorial on using eSnaps, and go, if you've never used eSnaps, the very first thing you need to do is go to your general resources. This is also on our website under this eSnaps features and functions resource, or it's on HUD Exchange, and I'll email this out afterwards too. But if you've never used eSnaps, please review that. Read that before you get into eSnaps. And if it's been a while since you've been in eSnaps, go ahead and read it. It's because I think it will be helpful. One of the things that people find most frustrating about applying for these funds is using eSnaps, and it's really not that difficult. Using eSnaps is, once you learn how to use it and you know the little tricks, they're not really tricks, but you kind of know what the system allows, what it doesn't allow, how it's easy to navigate it, then it just becomes a lot easier, and the application process, I think, goes a lot smoother. So if you haven't gone into eSnaps, review those documents first. Do we have anyone on this call? You know what, if you don't mind, just write in, if you've never used eSnaps and you don't have an eSnaps account, please write that in as a question. Just say, hey, I've never used it, so I see how many people we're talking about. Hopefully it's not that many. But if you have never used it, the first thing you're going to do is go to the eSnaps front page. I don't know why it's not popping up. Okay. So if you've been in before, you know you're going to log in with your username and password. But if you've never logged in before, you need to create your profile. all you're going to do is create your user account. You have to do this before you can be connected to any grant. So if you have not done this yet and you are up for renewal this year, do this as soon as you get off this call and then attach it to your grant. There should be some person who put together the eSnaps account when you initially applied, if at no other time. That person, hopefully they're still around, or at least you have their information. That person, or using their account, you can attach your user account to that grant and use that documentation from HUD to help you with that. Okay, it looks like we do have some that have never used it. So definitely go ahead and sign up your user account. If you have never applied in the past, once you have your user account, then you can start to put together your agency's your applicant profile, and then ultimately your project application. Okay. If you have forgotten your password, you can use forgot password, or if you have shared your username and password with me in the past, and many of you have, or some of you have told me that you want to make THN one of the users under your account, then I should have some of your information that can help you log on. Ultimately, of course, we want you to remember your username and password, so you don't need to contact us. If you do click forgot your password and have HUD reset it, then let us know what that change is if you want us to be able to go in and look at your eSnaps documentation. And a lot of applicants do this because we're able to help them go in and look at what they look at when they apply. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to this page. Okay, so right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the applicant profile so you can see how to get started on that. Once you have created your username, your password, and you have an account set up in eSnaps, then you would log in using that. And I'm going to log into my fake account here. Okay. So this is an account that I made up just to use as a sample. If you have not been into eSnaps in a while, this may look different to you. I'm sorry, let me stop for a second. Someone's telling me that there's no sound. Can someone type in if you hear me? Okay. Well, hopefully it's better for you, Hermelinda, because other people are saying that they do hear me. Okay, so let me reset. So once you log in, if you haven't logged in a little while, you'll see that this applicant line it looks different than it used to. Used to, it would just say applicant, like Sampleville Homeless Shelter. There wouldn't be a drop-down menu. Now that is an option. So if you have a username that's attached to several projects, you can access them all of those through that one username just by using the drop-down menu. So some of you, it'll still just be one option, but others, you may have more than one option. So that just looks a little different, but just make sure that you identify the application you want to work on. In this case, it's Sampleville Homeless Shelter, and that's what you use going forward. Okay, so you can go ahead and what I would suggest is you move from the left-hand side, move from the top down to the bottom as you work on your application. Always when you go in, if you haven't been in a while, I'd look at your account. Just make sure everything looks good. Again, this is a made-up account, but if there's anything that needs to be changed with that, you can change it at that time. This, if you've been going in quite often, you may not need to go in and check that. If you do need to change your password, of course, you do it over here. One of the things about using eSnaps is don't use your back button. Use the buttons down here. So if it says save, if you need to say something, please save it before you move on. If you need to go back to something, you can go back by clicking here, or sometimes there is a button on the button that says back or forward. Use those. Don't use your browser's back button. Sometimes it'll just make the system, it won't freeze up, it just might kind of go blank for a little bit, but then just refresh if that happens. It should be fine. Okay, so the rest of the work that we're going to do today is going to be in this, under this link. So after you've created your account and you've attached it to the grant you need to attach it to, go into your applicants folder. Now, if everyone can do this today, that would be great. What you're going to do is you're going to start out just by looking at this information to make sure it's all correct. So when I go to my registrants list, it looks like, let me go back. See, back to list. This looks like a couple of people, say a father and son or something like that. It's the profile of a couple of people, and it's your registrants list. So look at that. Make sure you have the people on here that you want on there. Earlier I went through and looked at this, and there were some people on there that I didn't need on there anymore, so I deleted those people off. And to add people on this, all you need is their username and email, I believe. If you need to add someone, you click on this link. That's like linking them to this account. I'm going to type in THN. And I try to add him. I think Ken is one of our, well, I guess he's not. Okay, I think that will work. So you attach that registrant, and you can see that now. My other THN username account is attached to this grant as well. If I want to delete that person off the grant, I click Remove from Registrants List. Okay, it's that simple, but I would check into that first thing. And again, always use the buttons down here. So I use the button for back to list. This, with the house, it's just the parent application. You can look at it. It's just kind of, it's for your information. You really don't need to do anything with that. So if you're curious about what that is, that's it. This is what you need to look into. This orange folder, this is your applicant profile. And remember, this is one of the things that you're going to have to download ultimately and submit to us. If you're a returning user or renewal grantee, when you get to this page, this is probably going to be grayed out. For example, it's going to look like, let me show you an example. Oh, actually, it is already grayed out. It shows that I've already completed this. So let me go back. When you get to this page, actually, I don't think you're going to be able to tell whether or not you've submitted this application or not. But when you get in, if you are a renewal user, the first thing you probably should do is just go down to number 6, Submission Summary. Click on that. If this below here is grayed out, see, I can't push it. I'm trying to click on it. If that complete button is grayed out, that means that it is listed as completed. I'm sorry. Let me back up. I told you wrong. If it's grayed out like this, it looks like it's not been completed, actually. So it's not been completed. If you see a button that says Edit, then you can press Edit so you can go in and make changes. I'm sorry for that mistake. What it's waiting for me to do in this is to upload a few documents that I took off when I was preparing for this. So if you see it grayed out, then you know you have some things to upload. So I would just go through this. The first thing I would do is just go through this each page and see what it is that's listed. If you're brand new, you'll be going through this and answering the questions. All of you will choose project application or project applicant because we're the collaborative applicant. You're the project applicants. So click that and do save and next. Okay. Then you get your organization information. You should be able to, most of this should be pretty easy for you to answer. Some of you may need to get the EIN number or your tax ID number from your executive director. So that's important that you put that in there, of course. Make sure you put the correct address. If the mailing address is different than the address above, indicate so. Click Save, and you'll be able to put in your mailing address. In this case, I'm saying yes. When you hit Save, that after you've clicked anything, always hit Save before you move on, because when you do that, it may open up more fields for you to view. Okay, you can see it closed that field. Also, with every page, if you look up here, you see instructions. Click on Show, and it will show you some more detailed instructions. So HUD tries to give you instructions along the way, so use those as you go through. Okay. Then you put in your contact information, your authorized representative, and then later your alternate contact. For some of you, you've had some changes in your agency, so you'll likely need to update this. So please go ahead and do that. Sometimes this happens. When this happens, just do refresh. I think it's actually because of the internet browser I'm using. I'm using Firefox, so Internet Explorer might work better for you. And I do see some of you have asked some questions, and I will answer those in just a little bit. Okay, when you get to number 4, they're asking for additional information. Again, if you need the instructions, look into here. And sorry about that. I shouldn't be so stubborn about the browser I use. What you're going to do first is, obviously you can read your instructions up here, but you need to identify what your congressional district is. If you are a renewal application and you've not moved, unless something's really changed, you might have the same congressional district. But to be just very safe, what you should do is you should go to our website, and you can click on online resources to utilize when working on your grant. You can see here, this is a website to help you determine what district you're in. And I'm going to say Texarkana. Just click enter, and you can see what district you're in. So this will be another one of the things that I email to you later. But go to our website to get a lot of these resources. So you'll identify what congressional district or districts you're in. For some of you, it could be more than one. And so, for example, safety in Mount Pleasant. I think you all might be in more than one congressional district because you have scattered site projects over, and I hope I'm not wrong about this, over I think 4 or 5 counties. In cases like that, they may have more than one congressional district to identify. Number 2, you identify whether or not you're a faith-based organization. You apply whether or not you've received a federal grant. If you're a renewal applicant, you need to put yes here because this is a federal grant. And then you need to identify whether or not your code of conduct is already on file with HUD. Again, this is something that we have the information for, and I'll email that to you. I'll also put it on the website. I noticed I didn't have that on the website, but there's a website that identifies all that. I won't show it to you right now. It takes a little while to get there, but I'll send you the hard copy of all of the code of conducts in Texas, so you can look at that. If it's not on file, then you'll have a chance to upload it a little bit later. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break for some questions here. Okay, Atlanta asked if we have the up-to-date HUD forms for the applicant profile, and I'm actually going to show you that now. Okay, and if you're, David Orr asked about their project being grayed out. If it's grayed out where you can't hit complete, then there's probably one form that you need to update. So when you go to your submission summary, if you can't hit complete, there is something that needs to be updated or something that needs to be included that it's still lacking. Suzette asked, she asked if the congressional district is part of headquarters or the project. So, for example, in a case like Safe Teas, their office is in Mount Pleasant, but they have housing projects in counties, 2 counties away. So in their case, that would be both. So headquarters and project. And actually, Suzette writes in again and says that HUD HDX has a template for codes of conduct, and that would be great if you could send that, Suzette. I have a sample I can send out too, but that might be something that's better. Okay, and then one more question before I move on. Carol Gresham asked, if the forms are the same except that they were dated for 2013, will we just leave it, or do we need to update each year? And the answer to that question is it depends on what forms. So as I go through, I'll identify which ones you need to update. Okay, so we'll move on to number 5, attachments. Okay, this isn't showing up correctly. Don't worry about it. If you're using Internet Explorer, this will probably work much better for you. All right, I'm sorry about this. Let me just go straight to Internet Explorer. All right, bear with me here. This is why I keep a list of usernames and passwords. Sometimes with these maps you will have some technical problems. All right, let me go ahead and go back. So I'm just got to see if Firefox will work. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. When you get to number 5, attachments, the first thing that you'll see is HUD Form 2880. This is your applicant/recipient disclosure update report. On our website, you'll see a link to all of your applicant profile materials. So if you click on applicant profile forms, you'll see a compressed file open up, and you can go ahead and go into that, and that will open up for you a list of all the materials that you need for that for the applicant profile. Okay, I'm trying to show it to you here. Okay, so your applicant profile forms, the first thing you'll need is the HUD 2880. Now this is something that, as Carol asked earlier, do we need to submit updated information? This is something that they'll want updated. So if you have this form from last year, just update the information that you need to. For a lot of you, you'll have these sections up top already filled out. So you may need to update part 2. If you've had any other governmental assistance provided, you would identify what that is in this section, and then make sure to have your signature and an updated date. So you're going to update that, and then you'll save that. I'm not going to save it right now, but you'll save it, and then you'll upload it here. So you upload it by clicking on the document type, the applicant recipient disclosure update report. Give it a name. 2880 is fine, and hit browse, and then you can pull it from your computer. After you've attached it to that page, make sure to hit save or save and back to list, but make sure you hit a button that has save on it. So now you can see that it is uploaded. If I want to see it, I can click on the magnifying glass, and you can make sure that you've uploaded the correct thing. I would go ahead and do that if I were you. After you upload it, just make sure that it is the right document. And here it is. So, well, that's not actually it, but I did upload it, so you can take a look at that. Okay, then you click Next. And this is your disclosure of lobbying activities. If you do not do any lobbying, which I assume most of you do not, you don't have to complete this. But if you do, complete this and disclose those activities. That form is also provided in the compressed file on our website. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like really fast. So this is it. So this is what you would fill out if you do any lobbying. But again, I don't think that would apply to the majority of you. Next page is the Code of Conduct. If you already have something on file, this is not required. If you're brand new, you definitely will have to upload something. Like Suzette said earlier, she has a sample that she can send us. I also have another sample if you want to look at that. And you can use that to create your Code of Conduct and upload it. And you do it the same way that you upload the Form 2880. You click on this, give it a name, and then you pull something from your computer that you've already saved. I mean, I would just put together everything in one electronic folder, everything that you plan to submit, and then after you put everything in that folder, then go here and start pulling from that folder to your applicant profile. I don't want to save this, so I'm going to just say back to list. Okay, going to click Next. Okay, now this is another form that I would just go ahead and update this every year. I'm not sure that it's absolutely required to update every year, but just to be safe, I'd go ahead and do that. So look at it and make sure that it is the updated version. If it's not, go ahead and fill it out. I mean, it's easy to fill out. You just type in your applicant name, the program, and then you just sign it and date it. Now, if you have any workplaces that are on file that are not identified, you can click here. But the majority of you, you just have to fill out this one form. So go ahead and update that this year too. Should be pretty easy to do that. Your nonprofit document, you do not need to update this if nothing has changed. I think for the majority of you, nothing will have changed. And I'm sorry, it's not coming up. Okay, there we go. So when you go through, just look at it. Make sure it's the same one that you want. If it is, you can definitely leave it there. Okay, so that may just be a matter of clicking next for you. This is another one that I think you should update every year. And I will have a blank form for you, but go ahead and look at it and make sure it is updated. If it's not, I think the majority of you will not be updated unless you've already gone on and done this. Actually, I think someone who's on, at least one of you, has gone in and done this already. Oh, it's not that form, I'm sorry. It's this form here. It's really easy to fill out too. All of these forms you can get done today. So go ahead and fill this out. There's not even a place to sign it. So you just fill all this out, answer those questions, and then you upload that. Okay, now HUD doesn't ask for any other attachments, but just to be safe, I want every applicant to attach their certificate of consistency to their applicant profile. I just want to make sure that we get it. Each one of you will need to put together that certificate of consistency, and what it's certifying is that you're consistent with the consolidated plan. So you will need to work with your city or your community development office to get this signed for your program. In communities like Longview, where there are several project applications, they can put together all their projects under one of these forms. Excuse me. So they get someone at the city, their authorized signer at the city, to sign on behalf of all those projects. If you've been renewing for a few years, you know exactly how this works. So I would just identify one person in your community and do it now. Identify a person that's going to go gather those signatures for all of your projects. Some cities will require a lot of detailed information about the projects before they sign it. I think Galveston last year was like that. So I would contact your city officials right away because they may require you to submit some more detailed information about the projects that will take you a little bit of time to complete. There are other project applicants that there's not a consolidated plan that they would work under. They would go through the state of Texas. So a project like Carroll's in Mount Pleasant, they go through the state. But most of you, I think, work under a city or region's consolidated plan. So go ahead and submit that with your project application, but you're also going to submit that separately as part of your application submission. And that's the applicant profile. And when you've uploaded everything you need to upload, then you should see a button that says submit. Okay. You can see that now the complete button, it's not grayed out. I can actually hit complete. So you can either export it to PDF at that time and then hit complete, or you can hit complete and then export it to PDF. Identify everything you want attached. You don't have to attach this other attachment. That's the certificate of consistency I just talked about. So in this case, I'm just unchecking that, but for you, just keep everything checked. It's easier. And then you'll see it opens up as a PDF. And then you can just save that. And that's what you submit to us. So that's something I'm hoping that most of you can work on today. And then that will get you ready for part 2 tomorrow when we start working on your project application in eSnaps. Okay, I see some people have asked some questions. Okay. Suzette asked about the project registration process. That's something we're going to go over tomorrow. So that will be the next thing we do. After you've updated your applicant profile, you will then register your project. So when I said we start from on the left-hand side and go from top to bottom, that's what we will be doing tomorrow. We're here now. So tomorrow we'll go to funding opportunity registrations, projects, and then submissions. And that's where we'll spend the majority of our time in this submissions. And then Ben asked, where can we find all of these forms? And the majority of these forms you can find on our website under Balance of State, Continuum of Care, and CoC Resources. And then click on the grant materials. So you can find a lot of these. And then I'm going to email everything after this webinar. Also, go to hudexchange.info and you can get a lot of information there. You can also link to that website from our website here under our grant materials. So for example, if you just need to learn about eSnaps, you click on that. That will take you to HUD Exchange where you can look into that a little bit more. Okay, I see it's 12, so we've come to the end of our time, but I'm willing to stick around if there are any questions that you have, any further questions. So go ahead and ask those questions if you want. I'm going to, just to make it easier, I'm going to unmute everybody. We might get a little bit of feedback, but that's okay.